Well, welcome once again to Calaveras Living. On today's program, we're going to talk about the strange history of Utica Mine, and that's, of course, in Angels Camp. Most of you know that. It's had an ill-starred existence, though highly productive. One of the great gold mines in California. We're going to talk with Rich Lunden, who's visited with us before. He's always glad to see him, and he has great experience in the mining business and things about precious metals and various other things. But Rich, it's good to see you.
Well, thank you very much, John.
Now, how did you get interested in the Utica mine?
Well, we're doing a project through Wangita Research Institute, that's our research and development group, to try and find solutions to mine waste and mine drainage.
Okay.
These mines have a lot of water in them.
Yeah, a lot of mines around the country do, huh?
That's right. And what we're trying to do is we have a project over in Tuolumne County in the Competence Mine in which we're using solar energy to pump the water out of the mine and then at night drop the water back into the mine and clean up the water as it goes, removing the toxic waste from it, toxic metals. And at the same time, when the water goes back into the mine, generate electricity with old-fashioned technology called the Pelton wheel. And so we have daylight, sun, nighttime mine power.
Eventual goal, though, that mining will be done there again?
Well, no, really, the underground mines in the Mother Lode had been down since 1942, essentially, when the government shut down all gold mining in California because it was non-essential to the war effort. All the mines flooded, and then when they flooded, the metal equipment that was still in the mines, that just stayed there and rusted. And then the surface materials from the mine, the surface equipment, in 43 and 44, they had scrap drives, and those went to this war effort. So the miners came back, and they found no equipment left. And so they were pretty much out of business. But anyway, right now, you have to have a tremendous mine value of ore, at least $500 a ton, in order for a mine to reopen. And plus, you have to go through all the regulatory hoops that Sutter Gold Mine has gone through in order for it to reopen. And that's taken them, I think it was 11 years to reopen that. And so we're looking to environmentally clean the water out of the mines, use it for power, and then return the water back, and then at the same time recover the metals that are in the water. Because now we've got great recovery technologies to recover the gold, the silver, lead, zinc, and copper specifically, right out of the water very easily, as long as you got solar power.
Oh, that's good. Well, getting to the Utica mine, what was it like in the heyday when it was really productive and things were going well?
Busy. The Utica mine was the lifeblood of Angels Camp. And under the leadership of Charlie Lane and his two partners, that was from the 1880s all the way up to the 1940s, they made a lot of money. And a lot of people were not mined. That's bad. That's a slip of the tongue. Okay. In their pocketbooks, maybe. A lot of people were supported by the mining industry, but the mine was very dangerous. And we had, I think in 1895, we had disastrous explosions and underground fires in the mine, and it cost a lot of lives, and there were other accidents over the years, and they're not well documented. And but the mine was always very difficult. If you don't mind, I'll go into the history of the mine a little bit.
Sure.
And what I'd like is the first slide, please.
Okay, we're going to look at some pictures that you researched, right? And brought, so we'll look at that first one about how things were going there, and you can describe what's happening. It'll come up on the monitor there very shortly.
There you go. There's the mine, the first head frame, the miners coming out of work, and that was under the Lane and I have to go back to my notes. The Lane and Hayward and what's the other one? That was the mysterious period. Well, anyway, they had the money to operate the mine. And the next one, please. And this is the full mine mill complex, and it was a very modern mine.
Pretty
And-
extensive.
Oh, yes, and they had a chlorination system there at the mine for retreating the ores. And I'll talk a little bit later about the ores themselves.
Okay.
And then the next one, please.
Okay, we'll take a peek at that.
This is the shaft again, but underneath it is a view of the hoist room. Now, that was a very modern hoist room for the day, and so no expense was spared getting the ore in and out. But it wasn't that big of a deal to bring the miners in and out. They had pretty terrible conditions.
Wow. But
And-
when you say hoist, that's both hoist the ore and the
And the workers out, correct.
Okay.
Now, we'll talk a little bit about the history of the mine.
Okay.
The history of the Utica mine, it was founded by John Selkirk in 1854. And he was a discouraged miner. And he came out from the placer mines with not much. And he was ready to go home.
That would discourage you.
That was discouraging. And he was just about ready to try and get a stake to get on a boat to go back home to Massachusetts. And what happened was, and this is amazing, is that he camped, and it was middle of July, and there was a blue jay causing some irritation to him. And he picked up a rock to throw at the blue jay, and it was full of gold. No kidding.
Wow.
And so he immediately realized that he had something there. And he staked a claim and then started working it. And then he would take the high-grade gold ore and he would put it in what they call an arostra. That's a circular grinding platform. Mm-hmm. And you usually have the mule go around and around. It's got a big heavy stone in it. It grinds it up. There's several of them around. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, it only worked for what they call free milling gold ore. That's gold in quartz that the gold comes right out and you can see the gold. But the ore over here at the Utica was polymetallic. There would be a little bit of free milling gold ore, but there'd be lead, zinc, copper, and arsenic sulfides. And you couldn't do anything with those. That was just blasted black stuff. And so anyway, what John did, he worked and worked and worked, and he couldn't get anything going. He made just enough to just eat beans, etc., and feed his mule. And then he went to Benicia in Sacramento with chunks of gold ore and said, I've got gold ore. And they said, if you don't have ore that runs over an ounce per ton and you don't have 100,000 tons in sight, we don't want to talk to you. Because during those days, in the 1850s, there were plenty of mines out there, Carson Hill being one, that had that sort of grade and tenor. Sure. So he went back and was very discouraged. And some guys came along, they were prospectors, and he said, what do you got in your shaft? And he said, it's the best thing going in the whole mother lode. Yeah. And he said, well, would you consider selling it? Well, I might for $200. Well, we got $50. I'll take the $50. And they said, but you got to throw in the mule. He took the $50, hopped on the mule, headed out of town and out of history.
Oh, wow. That's a good. So
well, anyway, they worked on it. They were smarter than he was, and they raised some capital and put us the 20-stamp mill. And the 20-stamp mill was able to process the selected high-grade free milling gold ore. And the free milling, as I said, means the gold comes out. You can see it. Yeah. But they couldn't handle the rest of the material. But they knew there was gold in the other sulfides, in the pyrite, in the chalcopyrite, the arsenopyrite, the sphalerite, and the galena. Those were the sulfide ores. Mm-hmm. And that was typical of the ores through here in the mother lode. But they couldn't do anything with them. They couldn't get the gold out of them. So anyway, they worked and worked and worked and worked. And then finally, they gave up, and they went away too. And about 1860, about 6 years later, Jim Fair came over with a bag of dirty gold. And it was dirty gold because he had gotten the plaster and it had a lot of magnetite in it. It wasn't worth the $12 an ounce. Mm-hmm. But he said, I got a bag of dirty gold. And they said, oh, you don't want to look at this old mine. That's old. Selkirk's old hole in the ground. He all went broke on it. And he looked at it. and he looked at it, and he said, and he was knowledgeable about some new technologies that come out of Germany. And the new technologies enabled them to smelt the ore, actually, to crush and obtain the gold and silver out of the pyrite and the chalcopyrite and the rest of the sulfide ores that they never could before through chlorination. So he invested get some people involved, invested, and Jim was a very, very good mining engineer. And he explored the workings and found first the areas that he could mine and get free gold out of. Then explored the workings and found the areas that he could find these higher grade gold areas, but also with lead, zinc, and copper. And so he worked that, and he made a lot of money. And he initially put in about $20,000, and he ended up with about $1.5 million.
A lot of money in those days.
That's right. Yeah. And then he got itchy feet because he had heard about the fabulous Comstock. And he decided, wow, let's go over to the fabulous Comstock. So anyway, he went over to the Comstock, and he invested with on the Hailing Norcross mine over there, which was a fantastically rich silver and gold mine. And he made millions. And he sort of lost interest in the old Utica that gave him his stake.
It was then called Utica Mine?
It was called Utica Mine. He named it the Utica Mine.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, when he went over to the Comstock, you know, he just let the Utica Mine sort of go pot. And they didn't put money back into it. And the Utica Mine always had to have a lot of timber. They said they nuded the forest around here, supplying the timber, because the ground was very bad. It was like this. It was a shaly schist material, and it breaks right off. And so if you were underground and you were mining and they put a shot next to you and all of a sudden the roof came in, you were dead.
Sure.
And so what they had to do, and this was a genius of Jim Fair. He knew about a thing called square setting. He put like a box type thing of like Tinker Toys in there, and it'd hold the back end. But you had to keep maintaining those because the acid in the water of the mine would eat at the wood.
Oh, wow.
So you had to use redwood. But anyway, then the question is, why is it so ill-starred? Well, because of the bad ground it was in, and because of the difficult working conditions, and they had 125 miles of workings underneath Angels Camp.
Is it right? And
they're also full of water. But the real reason it was ill-starred was this. After Jim gave up on the mine, it lay abandoned and all the equipment was taken off and it flooded back again. Well, Charlie Lane was a good mining engineer, and he recognized the ability to work these sulfide ores and get the gold out of them, and at the same time recover the lead, the zinc, the silver at the same time, which were also quite valuable at that time. Silver was about, it was a silver dollar. It was $1 an ounce. And lead and zinc were about 8 and 9 cents a pound. And there wasn't a lot there, but there was enough to pay for the expenses of timbering at least. Yeah. So we started opening the mine. And he got it opened all the way down. And I'll show the next series of slides after I finish here just a bit. We'll go into that. But anyway, when he was working the mine, he didn't believe in mining engineers and geologists, but he believed in mystics. And he had a medium in San Francisco that he would take a rock to, and he'd have her hold the rock, and she'd tell him whether he was going to have gold or not. Not based on the assay, but not. But anyway, I brought some rocks. Now this, John, as you said before, is light. Well, the mystic would probably say this, oh no, there's no gold in this. And the mystic would pick this rock up, and
which weighs a ton.
Weighs a ton.
Yeah.
It's about, and she said, oh, I think you'll find gold in this one. Just go over a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right and you'll find gold. Well, he believed it. Well, he came back to Angels Camp, told his wife he'd gone and seen a mystic. Mystic has said, hey, look, go, this is what you do. And she said, what did you pay the mystic? Well, we've got a deal. If I find gold, I pay her $1,000 in gold. If we don't find her, don't find gold, I don't pay her a thing. Well, she said, Charlie, you're crazy. You should not be involved with this mine. Well, anyway, he worked at it and worked at it. And then about 3 months later, 2 gentlemen showed up looking for a gold mine. One of them was Elsvina Hayward, and he was a very knowledgeable, very prim and proper mining engineer. And he was very knowledgeable about the new techniques of getting all the metals out, including the gold, out of these sulfides. And the other one was a guy named Hobart. Well, Hobart was the money man. Well, Charlie said, you know, I took this to the mystic, and the mystic said this. And he said, oh, I believe in that too. So he went into San Francisco to his own mystic with the same sort of rock and the same mystic, and he came back with Hobart and the money to do it. They formed a corporation. They mined the mine for, all the way up till it was shut down in 1942. Now I'm going to show you some pictures of the mine.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is kind of
These are the conditions underground, and the miners were working a vein above their head, and that vein was just like this rock. It was rotten. It had gold in it, but the thing about it, anytime you blasted and you didn't have timbering above you, the whole thing could come down on top of you. Could we have the next one, please? And that's how they all went down in the mine. They called it the King of Sardine Club.
Wow. And how many were employed there?
There were about 60.
60, okay.
With 125 miles of workings, there were about 19 working heads at any one time. Next, please.
Okay.
Next, please. And this is the quote cleanest place in the mine, and that black is not just blackness from the photograph. That's dirt. And so that's the reason that's so clean, or they tried to keep it so clean. That's where all the electrical equipment was. And if all the electrical equipment failed, the mine shut down. And so that gives you an idea of the hazards. OSHA would go take a look at that in a minute, or MSHA, and they would shut this mine down in a minute. That's why you can't open mines now. Next, please.
Okay.
And that's the mill, and they had kids working in the mill. These are stamp mills, and they had 60 stamps working, and the thunder could be heard 40 miles away.
Oh, wow.
And next, please.
Yeah, I think that's all on this series.
No, there's this one.
Oh, here you. Oh, so eventually this is the mansion. Huh?
This is the Lane Mansion, and that's open to the public, and people can go see it, and they can appreciate the wealth of the mining kings here in Angels Camp, just like they could appreciate the wealth of the mining kings over in Virginia City.
And where is that located now?
That's on right downtown. It's on Utica Street.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's open 2 or 3 days a week and on holidays.
Okay, but it's like a museum?
It's like a museum.
Uh-huh.
And it was owned by the Utica Mine until 1962, I believe.
Who owns it now?
Oh, I think it's with a trust. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's on the National Register of Historic Places. Wow. And it's completely furnished as if Charlie Lane was in there.
That's amazing. So it sounds like the Utica mine had a lot of ups and downs and a lot of people involved and unfortunately some deaths.
Oh, they had a lot of deaths. But the thing about it was, and this is sort of controversial, we know of 20 people that died that are memorialized as in a marker in the Utica Park. And the reason the Utica Park is down there in the Depression is because all the underground workings there collapsed. And so, they're still all down there. Not all the people are down there. They recovered all the bodies.
Any old tunnels are water-filled now.
That's correct. Yeah. And that's our project is, for Wangina Research Institute, is to find these water-filled tunnels for these polymetallic metal mines, and then take the water out of them, clean the water, and put the water back. All using solar power to generate the power to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that's kind of I mean, you're looking at a number of different mines to use that process.
right, over here in Calaveras County, and our pilot project is over at the Confidence Mine over there in where I live in Confidence in Tuolumne County.
Mm-hmm. Is there any safety factors involved in these water-filled tunnels and everything under, like in Angels Camp or anywhere else?
Yes, there are. We did a study of the mine workings underneath the Red Church over in Sonora, about 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the mine workings themselves were supported by, they started out being 6x6, either cedar or redwood timbers. Mm-hmm. Now the timbers have grown, they've swollen. And they're probably a foot and a half by each direction. And pretty soon, they'll collapse. And then, like over there at the Red Church, and now it's I guess it's the Episcopal Church now, not the Anglican Church anymore. Uh-huh. They may lose their whole parish hall, go right down into the mine workings. And underneath Sonora itself, and that's where we know about because we did surveys over there, there are 30-some miles of mine workings that are near the surface that could collapse. One's right underneath the 49. We recommended in the past that in Angels Camp, Sutter Creek, and over in Sonora and Mariposa, that heavy logging trucks not go on certain streets because they could drop through.
Well, and just the vibrations, can cause, just the weight of them can cause problems, right?
And they have fallen through. Back in 1984, right in front of downtown Sonora, a lumber truck fell right through into the mine workings on the main street.
Oh.
So that's what's going to happen. And it will happen because the mine timbers, because of the acid water, will break down.
And then there's virtually nothing you can do about that then, right?
The only thing that could be done, we recommended this on our project for the Red Church, was to actually fill the workings themselves with concrete, pump the workings with concrete.
That would be an enormous amount of concrete, wouldn't it?
Well, if you blocked off certain areas and just said, well, let's fill this area and this area, it might not be so onerous. But yes, throughout Calaveras and Tuolumne and Mariposa County, there's over 600 miles of underground mine workings.
Wow.
And the nice thing about it is this: if we can find out a way to recover the metals from the mine, it would pay for remediation of these mines and making them safe. Because frankly, with the regulations here in California, no one can afford to go back into those mines and work them.
No, I wouldn't think, or just the cleanup or putting the concrete in. Who would foot the bill for all that unless there was some
That's right.
some resource.
And if the water contains the metals, and if we can track down the owners, and that's part of our project, track down the owners of who owns the mineral rights to these various mines, and say, all right, say at Soulsbyville, you own the mineral rights here, and then and the sludge that comes out of the water is yours, and you can send it to the smelter and get paid. And then there's the money, the clean up, cap it up, do whatever you want.
Is it hard to track down owners?
Yes,
ownership
extremely
kind of
hard.
unclear.
Well, it's not so much it's unclear, but companies come and go when we're bankrupt.
Oh, okay.
And when they went bankrupt, the companies, you don't never know who is the successor to it. And sometimes there isn't a successor, only worthless stock certificates.
How did you get interested in doing? I mean, do you do this kind of on your own or in association with?
No, I got interested in this because over in Arizona we were working on a project. There was a mining district that we were considering leasing, a whole mining district, 40-some mines in it. And one of the big problems with that district was it was a very rich silver district, but it didn't have any water. And it didn't have any power, and they had to generate power, and it was very expensive to generate power. It was out in the middle of the desert north of Yuma. So we came up with the idea, our mining and geologic engineer, Bill Hurt, who was on our staff, and my second in command, came up with the idea, Rich, let's pump the water out of the mine using solar to generate the power. Then we put up a 1 to 3 megawatt solar system, just like they have over here at Modesto, and then transmit the power, the excess power we didn't need, over to the Yuma Proving Grounds by microwave, and that's the future.
Oh.
You don't have to have towers. All you have to have is nobody in between.
And how did he come up with that idea? I mean, what was it?
He came up with the idea. He's a geologic engineer and metallurgist at U.S. Bureau of Mines. And they were working on these innovations before the government, in its infinite wisdom, closed the U.S. Bureau of Mines down. And I've known Bill for 40 years. I financed his master's thesis at the University of Arizona.
Wow.
So.
You think of these things are so innovative the general public just doesn't understand them.
Well, right over here at Electra, right on the Mokelumne River, they pump the water up, put it in the basin when there are low electric usage and low cost, and then they let the water come back down again, and it generates power.
Yeah.
And there are 14 mines around the world in remote areas that use this hydro solar system, and we want it to be used here.
Well, that's good. Well, I wish you well. Just in closing, any quick comments about just the Utica mine? You say it's very worthwhile to go visit the mansion, right?
Right. It's very worthwhile to visit the mansion, and the kids like to play on some of the equipment over there at the old Lightner mine, which is just above the park. There are shafts there that they're covered over, but they could fall 600 feet.
Yeah, I had heard that some people drop rocks and you don't never hear them hit.
That's right.
So you have to be very careful.
Right, and if you're going onto a mining property, always make sure that the person that owns the property knows that you're there. Otherwise, you're trespassing.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, never go into a mining tunnel. Never.
No.
I don't do it.
And if you don't, we shouldn't. But Rich, it's good to see you always. Everything you talk about is interesting.
Well, thank you so much for your time, John.
We got to get you back to do some more alchemy things, too.
Okay, we will.
Okay. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, learning about the Utica mine, and maybe get by and visit the mansion. And we hope we see you next time on Calaveras Living. Bye-bye.